Hey everyone, this is Tristan from the Raleigh Wine Shop, and I'm sharing with you my selected Austrian cuisine recipe chosen from the Austrian Wine Board's handy little cookbook. It's basically a chicken paprikash with spätzle. Went ahead and did the spätzle ahead of time. We'll play that for you next, and now I'm about to dive into doing the chicken and the sauce. Enjoy!
Okay, for our spätzle, we have 1 cup of flour, pinch of white pepper, half teaspoon of nutmeg, half teaspoon of salt, got a 1/4 cup of milk here, and 2 eggs beaten. So I'm going to add these wet ingredients to my dry mix alternately and whisk it together. Okay, so I did have to add a splash more milk to my mixture here because we do need it to be just a bit runny because we're going to have to put it through a colander, something with some large holes in it, or a spätzle maker. I'm actually going to use a potato ricer to sort of push this dough through. Yeah, definitely a lot looser than a normal pasta dough. And but we're going to let this sit for a few minutes, let it start accumulating some bubbles, and then we'll get it in some boiling water. Okay, so we've got some bubbles forming here, and we got a boil on the stove. So not like a full-on rolling boil, but a good simmer. And yeah, I'm going to do a test batch real quick. Load some dough into my ricer here, and squeeze it out in the pot, and see how it works. Yeah, it works pretty well. This needs a couple minutes on there, and yeah, it said just wait till all of your spätzle is floating. So, I'm gonna scoop it with my spider. You can use a slotted spoon. Yeah, it's gonna give it a little turn here, make sure everything's nice and cooked. And yeah, I'll start scooping this. I'm putting this in a colander over a bowl so the spätzle can drain. Yeah, we'll just do this a few more times. All right, so here is my spätzle. Didn't really lose that much water. I'm gonna hit it with some cold water real quick. Oops, dirty sink. And stop the cooking process. I'm gonna hit it with some olive oil and put it in the fridge, and then when we're ready to eat, right before, I'm gonna throw this in a skillet with some butter or some olive oil and just cook it again, crisp it up a little bit. So what we have here are 4 bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. So the recipe did actually say to take 2 whole small chickens and then break them down into quarters, but ain't nobody got time for that. I love, just getting these, pre-processed bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. They provide a lot of flavor, absolutely delicious, and also really great for this method of cooking where we'll be searing, releasing a little bit of fat and schmaltz, then taking them off, then building the sauce from there, then putting them back into the sauce when it's about halfway through to braise. Then we're going to thicken it with some sour cream that we're going to whisk with 40 grams of all-purpose flour. Yes, this is all in metric because it is from Austria. Eventually, we are going to add in about 600 milliliters of chicken stock. We're going to zest a lemon. There's going to be a teaspoon of tomato paste thrown in. And then right at the very end, we're going to put in 125 milliliters of light cream, but my measuring cup is now full of sour cream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sear off these chicken thighs, get them golden all over, pull them off. Then in that sort of fat and olive oil mixture, I'm going to saute the onions, and then we're just going to keep building flavors and building up the sauce from there. All right, got a saute pan on medium-high. I got some oil in there, just enough to coat the bottom, make sure nothing scorches. And it's time to put some chicken on.
This is much harder to do when one is not looking
At the viewfinder or the pan the whole time.
and so you want the pan to be hot, you want the
You can go in there and start sizzling immediately.
and yeah,
We're just going to get these skins nice and golden brown. The point is not to cook through at this point. And just sort of release some fat and some juices and some yumminess before the onions go in. Alright, our chicken's nice and browned up. And we got some beautiful schmaltziness in the pan. I'm going to add our onions. So hopefully this will be naturally acidic enough to get all these yummy, crunchy bits off the bottom. If not, I may improvise and throw in a little wine vinegar and kind of release that off the bottom here. But here goes nothing. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, I did end up adding just a little bit of vinegar in there to get everything out the bottom of the pan. This recipe called for 250 grams of finely chopped onion. I took my biggest onion and gave it a fairly good dice here. It was just under that 250 gram mark, but I think this is more than enough. And we're gonna cook this until it's nice and soft, probably about 5-6 minutes or so. And next step is we will add 40 grams of paprika. This is a little tough. I think it was a mistranslation. Recipe called for 40 grams of sweet peppers. But 40 grams of a sweet pepper is like a third of a bell pepper, which really wouldn't do anything. And then I looked up online. There's a lot of German, fairly rusty from my college days, but it seemed like sweet paprika is what it meant. So we'll be putting 40 grams of sweet paprika. It seems to be half a cup, maybe a little more, maybe like 3/4 of a cup. Definitely using the kitchen scale a lot today. We'll add that and the stock to the pan here after these soften up. Everything's looking nice and soft in the pan, so here's our 40 grams of sweet Hungarian paprika, 600 milliliters of chicken stock. Now looking at this and realizing this is a lot of sauce. So we're probably going to have some sauce left over. It did call for 2 chickens worth of protein here. But in this house, we like lots of sauce. We'll probably repurpose this for other dishes down the road, but in the meantime, it says to add our paprika. Oop, I'm going to need both hands for this. I'm going to immediately add this chicken stock as well. Alright, our chicken stock and paprika are in. I'm going to let this cook for just a little bit. I'm going to do a teaspoon of tomato paste, and I'll zest probably about half this lemon into there. Once again, I'll need both hands for this, but yes, bring this up to a gentle little simmer, add these ingredients, and we're going to let it cook off a little bit, and we're going to add our chicken back in to cook in this sort of rudimentary sauce before we thicken it with the flour, the sour cream, and the white cream at the very end. Alrighty, teaspoon of tomato paste. Zested that lemon. Got a nice simmer going. We're gonna taste it real quick and maybe add some salt, depending on what I think. Just a bit of salt. I think for the future, I want to add that tomato paste to onions before the paprika and the stock, is so that tomato paste gets some direct heat, cooks off a little bit and sweetens up. But that's just, something to keep in mind for next time. So plenty of chunky onions in here. See how those cook down as time goes on. The recipe does call for straining this before serving, but I may want to keep those onions in there and use an immersion blender. I'll take this off the heat and blend it up with basically it's a blender at the end of a wand or a stick, and just blend it real smooth, keep everything in there. But yeah, we're gonna put our chicken back in here now that's on the simmer and let that cook off for a little while. And then we'll pull the chicken out and begin thickening up the sauce. Alright, I've got the chicken back in the pan here. I'm turning the heat down to just a skosh below medium, because this is a bit more of an aggressive simmer than I'd like, so this should calm down. I also dumped any of the accumulated juices from my plate back in, gave my plate a good wash because that chicken was not fully cooked at the time, because we'll be pulling this out after about 10 or 15. I'm going to hit it with a meat thermometer, make sure it's at a good 165, fully cooked through before we pull it out. And then we will start thickening up that sauce. Little whoopsie on my part. You should cover the chicken. Definitely, if now that I've fully read through that sentence, turning that temperature down is a must for putting a cover on there. May even just do it a bit more, because it was fully bubbling when I put the lid on. And yeah, that will definitely get us a cook on our bird. Starting to melt some butter here in this pan. I'm going to use this to heat up the spätzle after the sauce is thickened. Chicken is fully cooked. Now we have our sauce, and I whisk together the 40 grams of flour and 250 milliliters of sour cream. I'm going to add this and make sure it's all incorporated. And after that, we will add the 125 milliliters of light cream. At that point, that's when it's going to tell us to sieve it and remove the solids. I'm going to hit it with the immersion blender, whip it real smooth, and then I will toast off my spätzle. Brought my whisk back out to help incorporate everything. I'm going to get this up to a simmer again because we did have raw flour. I want to make sure that cooks off so we don't get that flavor in the finished sauce. Then I'm going to add the cream, incorporate that. I do have a little bit of lumpage going on, so I'm glad I already had that idea to use my immersion blender and just really whip this into shape. So yeah, I'm gonna get this simmering again. So yeah, you may be tempted to turn the heat up. Do not turn the heat up or turn the heat down too quickly at any point, because that will break a sauce. And we don't want to break our sauce. We want a nice, fully incorporated, emulsified sauce. So I'm going to get this back up to a simmer, add the cream, take it off the heat, and blend it. Okay, back up to the simmer again, just tasted it. That sort of floury flavor has cooked out. Here's 125 milliliters of light cream, also known as single cream. Did have to Google that. Apparently the UK and Europe have a different term for it. Alright, so what attracted me to this recipe out of the brochure was just how beautifully vibrant orange this sauce was. It is gorge. Alright, so I'm gonna get my hands free again. I'm gonna take this off the heat to use my immersion blender and kind of whip it all together. And then I will saute my spätzle in that butter that I melted earlier. Hands over the top of that, whoops. Get those hot again, maybe a little crispy, and then it'll be dinner time. We'll get that stuff off the side. All right, this is my immersion blender. Now it's off the heat. Just go. So I will probably put this down and increase the speed on the blender and really make sure this is nice and whipped up. Beautiful, nice and smooth. Let's taste it. This is my lemon I zested earlier. I am going to squeeze a little more lemon juice in there. And then we've got the butter on the hot burner here, and we'll get that spätzle going. All right, Spätzle in butter on the skillet. Getting this hot again. Maybe a little bit of crispiness, but not too much. And yeah, we'll get plated and have our wine pairing. And here we are. We have our chicken with our Paprikash sauce, our Spätzle, all paired with the Chiana Strauss white blend. This is a label made by Bettina Strauss. Of the Strauss family, they've been making wine for over 200 years in Steiermark, or Styria, sort of southern Austria. Green rolling hills, absolutely beautiful. Well, from pictures. Haven't been myself, and this is her label. It is associated with what looks like to be a little wine bar, and also like little bed and breakfast. Once again, my German is pretty rudimentary these days. Been a while since college, but it seems like they serve this at the wine bar, and would absolutely love to visit when all this sort of settles down. And maybe I hit the Duolingo or Babbel or something, brush up on my German. But this is a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, and Pinot Gris. This will be a nice sort of medium weight wine. Lots of acidity, but good ripe fruit and texture to complement the spice and the aromatics of that paprika. The sort of a lot of like lemon zest and lemon juice that we've added. Can't wait to dig in. And probably also make a little salad, because what we have here is meat, sauce, and starch. So we definitely want to balance this out a little bit. But thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you at the shop soon.